Okay, hello everyone, and slight apology for being a little bit later than we announced. We had a few minor technical difficulties, but now we're ready to go. Today, in this episode of Digital Twins Around the World, we are going to talk about smart energy in Asia, in particular about smart energy in China and Southeast Asia with our guest, Zhao Yu in Shanghai. That's also the reason why we are a little bit early in the day than we are usually filming this. And we would like to talk about this topic a little bit from how has been the development over the last 20 plus years that Zhao Yu has been in this industry. He started off as an engineer and has experience pretty much all around the world. He has an amazing story to tell, I think, and I'm looking forward to that. And about how renewables have an impact on this industry and what new technologies can really mean to it, and how you can enter the market. That's also a very interesting question right there. As a startup, as an established player, Calvin, as he's also called with his English name, has that experience too, and we'll share a little bit about that. As always, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat, and we will get to them at the end of this episode. Nicholas will manage that in the background. He, again, is the boss in charge of the technology and everything. I'm just sitting here to talk. And with this, I would like to directly get started. Calvin, thank you so much for joining us today. And the show is yours.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Nicholas. And thank you, everyone. Very happy today to join this webinar. And my name is Zhao Yu. And in either way, you can call me Calvin in English. Okay, now I make a brief introduction about my presentation today. Okay, I share my and all right. So today I will talking about the smart energy in the Asia, particularly in the China and Southeast Asia region. Before starting this talking, I just want to give a very brief introduction about my professional background. Actually, I have 17 years working experience with the State Grid Corporation of China, the largest power utility in China. My personal experience is from the power generation to power network. And also I get involved into the business penetration of the State Grid in the worldwidely. Just after the 2015, after I was working in Africa for certain years, I was there is for privatization of the power sector in one countries there. And I noticed the phenomenon that even the infrastructure building construction they're working very hard for the people living there have no power access. Every year they spend a lot of money there, but the situation cannot change. So I come back to thinking how going to be a solution to this kind of developing countries. Okay, so that's from 2016. After my experience there, I starting my personal business. Focus myself on in the field of the sustainable energy and the solutions in developing areas. Okay, then I was talking about the situation that in the China and Asian countries, okay, in East Asia. And I will explain a little bit more from the 5 dimensions. Okay, this slide also explains a little bit about why I moved from a secured state-owned utility company to a more challenged field. Okay, in terms of the energy infrastructure investment, the capital investment depends on a lot of reasons. In China, the government always put financial priority on the energy infrastructure. Therefore, if you come to China, you will see very few scenarios of the power shortage or power outage in mainland. But in Asian country like in Africa, power delivery situation is not good enough, particularly in the rural area, in the town, in the island area. In some metro cities like Jakarta or Bangkok, Thailand, situation is much better. Okay, but still you are experiencing some sort of outage and shortage. It's quite often to see there. It's because of many reasons, okay, including the financial limitation, including the incapability of the human resource there. Okay, as for the generation mixed in the Asia, the coal-fired is still one of the major dominant, fields there. In China, in terms of the capital installed capacity, the coal-fired power station is still account for 70%. Okay, we in recent few years we actually already invest a lot in the renewable area, wind farm, solar farm, and even the natural gas and hydro. But the coal is still the largest portion. And in Asian country, they have a very good condition and for the natural, but they don't have many reserve of the coal mine. So the gas, imported gas from the natural gas from other area, and they have abundant hydro. And in certain industrial zone or certain city, they're using the coal-fired as well. As for the renewable development plan, I think in this area, every country take it very seriously. And Chinese have a very ambitious plan for replace the conventional fossil fuel power station to the renewables. But because of the base is too large, and still by this year, I think the country have a goal of the 27% of the total generated electricity is from renewable resources. But there's still a very long road to run in the next decades. Asian country, they have very sound natural condition. They have very abundant renewable resources, include the sun radiation, including the hydro resources, and they have a very good forest resources and agricultural crops, which can be used as the biomass and biogas power stations. But thanks to many reasons, the development of the renewable in Asian country is not as fast as other places in the world. It's really because the immature engineering service teams there, and also the higher capital, expenditures for such kind of new types of the generation. For the energy consumption, we compare the unit value instead of the total value. For the per capita figures of the electricity consumption, compared with the advanced countries like European country or the United States, both China and East Asia countries, our figures are quite lower. So we still expect that the demand of the energy consumption will be increased together with the living standard increase and also the electrification extent in this region. Actually, due to such reasons, we have already encountered challenges of in certain times about the peak load during the day, particularly in some seasons. We our grid encounter the problems of the peak load, and the people living there is starting the air conditioner or starting the heater in certain based on the climate change. But normally, because of the consumption budget of the families, normally in the lower time, they will shut down all these consumptions. Then you can feel the big difference, big gap between the peak hour and the normal operation time. For the I just mentioned the countries for the clean energy conscious, but in this area that the different government, they play in different roles, so and in different way. In China, it's kind of serious, top to bottom initiatives by the central government, including some sort of performance examination to the local government, some KPI evaluation to the state-owned company. If they are not investing in the clean energy or the renewable energy, maybe they have no right to set up or build another traditional, conventional coal-fired stations. And also the government are providing financial subsidy for the development of the clean energy a lot. For Asian country, what we are noticed is that a lot of NGO or the local community, they play a very important role in the environmental protection. Some movement is organized by the NGO and the community, local people living nearby to object some conventional fossil fuel project. Particularly in the recent few years, 2 years, some big project about the coal-fired station was postponed or delayed by the objection of the local community. And now the government is forced to revise general plan for the energy resources. And this difference actually across the region makes their development and attitude toward the smart energy are different. Okay, actually we can see that renewable actually is give a lot of pressure on the power delivery service. Asian country, they lack of the investment, and the infrastructure of the power energy actually is weaker than China. Okay, so but still, this is a tendency in this region. So smart grid actually is coming out because of this pressure. Okay, sometimes we're talking about smart grid because I still remember 10 years ago we have a meeting with Siemens. At that moment, Siemens is raised a concept of a smart planet, and we all agree that our electric power industry actually is never stupid. Actually, the whole electrical supply chain, supply process is fully automated, from its generation till it's consumed by the end user. And you may see that a lot of industrial giants, like manufacturer, okay, like the General Electric, Siemens, ABB, Schneider, Alstom, or Eaton in the United States, okay. All this is a very, well-known and reputed manufacturer. They are always working hard to be the innovative companies for catering for the new technologies. So the energy industry actually is evolving, naturally, progressively. But same as the other walks of life, the power industry actually is faced the new technology revolution as well. Okay, one big revolution in the past decades is IT implementation. So IT technology integration, is in other industries targeting for improving the higher working efficiency, helping the administration to make the decision. So, and the same as which is in our electric grid, because the people always debate that, utility is very stubborn, utility is very, bureaucracy, and there are a lot of red tape. Okay, so this is a kind of technology and the society change to push the electricity to be more smarter. So that's the reason why smart grid or smart energy is coming out. And the major drive for smart grid, another major drive is what I mentioned before, is a sustainable development. So more and more renewable energy is is starting, particularly the wind and solar. But the fluctuation of their output or their generation, gives huge challenge of the existing structure or existing architecture of the grid. So the grid is not flexible to absorb all this electricity generated from this one. Okay, either way, we like in China, we put more on the spring reserves, or we increasing the the network capacity, or we're thinking of some changes on the existing power grid architecture. Like what we are doing now in Asia country, a more distributed microgrid or a more integrated approaches. So smart grid and smart energy in different countries differently due to many reasons, constrained by the many different factors. For instance, the regulation is different, or the technical and engineering capability of the market player is different, and the condition of the existing power infrastructure is different, and also the geographic situation, which features differently in every country. I just give you an example in the Southeast Asia, one of Southeast Asia country. There's a small town in the mountain area, but the nearest substation was 100 miles away. You can imagine that the very low, using the medium voltage, 22 kV voltage to send the power to the end user there. Through this 100 kilometers away, the miles away, all the voltage drops a lot. So the reliability, the power quality to the end user is quite bad. So the experience of the clients there is not as good as the other places. Okay, so practically in China, utilities are leading players of the smart energy. They actually demonstrate many achievements and even firm them into the industrial practice. Okay, like the smart metering or robotic technologies, but with side effects as well, because they are moving very fast. The local manufacturer or the solution provider is not ready for that. So therefore, the performance of the applications are not really satisfied somehow. Okay, and the clients, your clients cannot make the decision for the vendors, right? And also the Asian country, what we see in Asian Asian countries utilities, that the administration was very hesitated. Okay, they want to testify, right, the feasibility of the new technologies. Okay, either through the consultancy, globally, like Accenture or IBM, something that they come up very often to convince the utilities there, say, okay, this solution already done in the other country and its performance very well. Maybe it's a changing for you. And also another another factors push Asian country utility to be smarter is the supply chain changed. Okay, there's fewer and fewer suppliers to provide the conventional solutions, but they all name that it's a new smart solutions. So for like the Asian utilities don't have many choices, just have to be moved, pushed forward. But generally speaking, they are moving a little bit slower than the other places. In China, we saw many advanced trials, including the smart operation and maintenance practice with some AI algorithm or AI implementation, and using like the drone fly to do the routing check for the line situation, using the robotic technology in the substation for the human replacement. Okay, the robotic, they will run automatically across the substation, so there's no need for the human to work in there. The robotic take the pictures of all this equipment and send back to the back office. Okay, they also like to tailor some new business model, like to constructing integrated telecom facility, energy storage station inside the substation. So then the utility or the power company there, in the future, they can do some other business as well. And in Asian country, some energy utility are still striving for more diversified energy resources. Okay, in Thailand, major utilities started the project of MI a few years ago, which in China already rolling all the meters out, the traditional meter out to a smart meter. But in Thailand, it's only starting the demo project, and we didn't see the result yet. Some other utilities began also in the engineering a large scale, hybrid floating solar and hydropower recently, and make it as a firm power generation, which is give the less pressure to the big grid. Some other companies began and financed the design and the construction of the microgrid in a mountain and islanding area. In Laos, utility studies the concept of the virtual power plant for its hydro power station there. Indonesia, still 15% of the population there have no access to the power. Okay, so government is financing off-grid hybrid distributed energy there. They want using the battery storage plus the renewable energy to last the diesel generator running there. So in the remote island, they have many such kind of demands there. So the smart grid, the smart energy in the situation in Asia countries are totally in a different situation. Recently, we actually do a demonstration is doing that project now due to the pandemic, virus issues. This project is postponed also. That we are in the north of the Asia country. We are trying to do a smart microgrid with a few megawatt load and combined with the hydropower, combined with the small solar farm there, and to try to build a digital twin and using the AI to do some operational optimizations there. So trying to do that in this region can solve the energy delivery problems. We believe it. Okay. So I can see, but now we are facing another challenges for the digitalization. Okay. Well, before IT revolution, to push the conventional grid to be the smart grid. Now the new era is coming again to be another round of being smarter. But still, as an engineer-based person in this industry, I still question that whether or not our industry are ready for this revolution again. 10 years, decades ago, 10 years ago, the challenges for the IT revolution, okay, we could hire and outsource enough IT capability. Okay, we set up the IT department instead of the IT team in our office, and we can hire a lot of enough, IT engineer outside. But for AI expert or data scientist recruitment, at this moment, I think it's a mission impossible. So the energy here is concerned about how we can improve or how we can face these challenges. Okay, we still have no idea about the sensors in the future, components in the future infrastructure, and such as like also the aging computation chips. Okay, how we can use in that one to affect our operation. And also due to the renewable penetration to the grid, maybe we have to change our control logics other than the centralized dispatching model to more distributed control logics. So people work inside now are definitely not capable of such change so far. So we need some like some tools or some instrument that help the engineers to be moved more closer to the data scientist, or to help them to understand each other. And I think that that's the way we have to first to be ready for these kind of challenges. So actually, I think NetRoom is one good product that I have ever seen that squeezing the capability gap between the domain experts and the domain expert and the IT guys and also the data scientist. And it's easy way for us to analyze all the data that we have already acquired. But what I call is the data information or data to be a live data analyzing. But still, we need to compare the rate of return of this kind of investment to be more commercialized situation in the future. So I just give a very brief introduction about what happened in the East Asia regions. Okay, what the difference between the East Asia countries and China, and what is the different incentive for them to facing the challenges of our smart grid, our smart tendencies. So I think I give back this stage to Zhang, and then we can start in the dialogue or some talking. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introduction and the insights into these very interesting markets. My first question would be, you have an abundance of experience. Your background is in engineering, and you have been coming up basically with Shanghai Utilities. You grew into a management role. You have been in that capacity deployed in various countries. You've been to Africa. Then you started as an entrepreneur a few years back, and you have been running projects in Southeast Asia and China. And from a perspective, I think most people outside of China, of Shanghai in particular, cannot imagine the transformation that city has been making over the last 30 years, let's say. If you look at pictures from the early 1990s, there were barely one skyscraper. And nowadays it's a amazing skyline. There's a lot of light and a lot of energy usage, much more than we, for example, are used to in Europe. And that's something you see in Asia in general, in big cities. So on the other hand, how have you seen the biggest challenges for companies that want to introduce such a market that's very shifting a lot over the last years, that had to cope with a huge uptick in demand? And if you have a new technology that is not necessarily directly related to the fundamentals, but can bring you some potentially some additional benefit, how would you say, what are the main challenges that you face to enter such a market, especially if you come from a third country maybe? And this is going first with your experience in China, in Shanghai, but second also in the various markets in the ASEAN region, in Southeast Asia. And along that line, if you're a startup or also an established company that want to enter that market, where would you see the first step making the most sense? in that particular area?
Uh, oh, okay. Actually, it's a very interesting question. It's not only the technical question. I can explain a little bit about the energy industry, okay? Because I was just familiar with this industry.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're talking about smart energy here. I'm asking because I know a lot of people that watch this are actually coming from the entrepreneurial side. So I think this would be an interesting question to ask.
Sure.
Or to answer.
Yeah. For the energy industry, actually, it's, I think no matter in which country, this industry is very conservative. Okay, it's very conservative, and they have the most stubborn engineer inside, and and actually the objection or refusal of the new technology is always the practice of these people. Okay. So if some new technology coming or new interesting issues want to try in this industry, it really takes time. And I think the better we have to first to using the industrial partner, which is already have the share in the local market. Okay. And also for those consultant, like we know in the last 20 years, from 20 years ago, I think it's 15 years ago, 2004, and the big company Bear Point. I think Bear Point is a consulting company who finally they changed to like Accenture or something. Okay, they come to China, come to Shanghai, is lobbying for ERP, BPR. And at that time, no one liked it. All the engineers sitting in office, they don't understand what you are doing, trying to do. Okay, we are very safe, and we are, the delivery power. The most important thing is the safety and the secure power delivery to the customer. It's not to improve something, on the table, on the paper, or why you using these things. So I think, but still, this kind of force is a very huge forces for convince the utility to adopt new technology. Okay, and the second thing is that power is a standard, international, is an industrial standard. Power is quite rigorous system, and the system, they have a lot of standard through IEEE or IEC standard, which is applied in there. So if you want to be new technology, you have to follow up this standard. Even there's no standard there, we have to set up a standard through different players, market players, including the manufacturer, including the university, including the organizations of the standard. So and then the new technology, because you have to speak with the different platform, different system existing used, so you have to know what their protocol and what their standard was, and then you can communicate with each other. Okay, so if you have the same language, then it's going to be a little bit easier. And also the key issue is that the new technology have to be solving the pain point of the users, either the clients. Okay, if now the energy clients, they have a lot of argument about the service of the utility, then if the technology can solve these problems, easier, ease this tense, so it's going to be okay, acceptable by the utilities. And also, if we can solve the pain point of the utility, for instance, like in the past 2 decades, utility invest a lot on the IT system. So they have many different IT systems, speak different languages, and actually they wasted the resources of the. Then they have a different kind of database, and they have a lot of data there. But we find out that in some different data base, that one thing means differently in the different system. So if now the data proposed by the IT system or provided by the financial team are different with the data provided by the operation team.
Nomenclature, basically the
operators.
How things are named is different.
Yeah, and even the scope of the data is different. So that's give a lot of trouble for the integration.
So there's a lot of overhead in translating that. Basically, is what you experience. Okay.
Right. So if the new technology can solve these things, it's going to be easily acceptable by the existing customers.
Yeah. This is what you see, like from our experience too. This is what you see in the energy markets worldwide. That it's a fairly conservative industry, but also an industry that feels that there has to be change, and that's mainly driven by introduction of renewables, right? And it's driven by, in the case of China in particular, rising demand that has to be coped with somehow. That's something we see less in Europe, for example, where the demand is more or less stable at this point. There's more movement towards saving energy. But the introduction of renewables and also the political drive behind it everywhere around the world, maybe with one or two exceptions I'm not going to name, in pushing renewable energy, that is something that always comes up. The other thing is regulatory pressure. In Europe, you see, as you mentioned also, the introduction of smart meters and the struggle to actually find the business case related to it. Yes, on the one hand, I want to have more visibility, and for various reasons, driven by different factors. In Italy, it was, as stupid as it sounds, theft of energy. We wanted to know where did that energy go. There were a lot of legal fights about that and so on. In other places, it is really because of the better understanding of the grid due to introduction of renewables and other things. Anyway, whatever the reason may be, there's a lot of regulatory pressure of making that step. So is that a challenge in China, in Asia? And what is what is in your experience, the main factor there in terms of what to do with this technology? Like, you have to implement it, and you have to move towards renewables. But how do the business models that evolve around that look like, in your opinion, or from your experience? Like driven by the technology that has to be introduced.
Yes. You mentioned smart metering. You mentioned also about the renewable integration.
Those are two examples that are mostly, that to a degree are related, but obviously also stand alone. So maybe if you can talk about these two examples would be amazing, because that's what you hear all the time. It's renewables, smart metering, which then leads to smart energy, right? In some way, or not leads to, but is related to that whole topic of IoT. And how do I cope with that information? And then on the other hand, how do I cope with my grid in an environment where I don't have this classic one-to-N relation, one big power plant to N receivers, but I have more of an M-to-N relationship of various wind energy parks that produce not unpredictable, but not really that predictable either. I don't have control over what energy they produce at a given time. Then there's the topic of storage. So in that whole whole surrounding, where do you see the biggest challenges and where do you see the biggest opportunities? And what business models do you think will evolve around that?
Yeah, for the energy situation in the Asia country, the reason I started the business in the Southeast Asia, because it's lessons I learned from the Africa. I just mentioned through the slide that I was there is for privatization of the power sector in the Africa country. Okay, so the regulatory there is ready for the marketing mechanism, and the pricing mechanism there is also the marketing driven. But after the privatization, 3 to 4 years, the situation of the power delivery is even worse than before. And I come back, I see every year that all the utility, all the power companies invest there. But finally, the customer didn't feel it. Okay, regulatory is ready. Okay, the investment is ready. But why they still cannot solve the energy problems? Okay, so it's reminded me, or just to give me the to find another way to, maybe we have to change the energy from all the infrastructure all the way from the generation one way to the end user, but to integrate more renewable close to the end user. For instance, the solar farms close to the village. Okay, so the solar farm can directly sell the power to the customer there, and if there will be extra, they can sell to the grid. But there, the grid is not ready, because all the from technical point perspective, all the protection relay, all the infrastructure is ready only for the one-way current flow. When you change the current flow, all the protection setting and the fault current calculation will be again differently. So the system there is not ready. So come to some solution like using the microgrid, okay, to have a connect point to the traditional grid, no matter the grid is weak or stronger. We can maintain the balance within this small microgrid or mini grid. Okay, put there, we can using the abundant resources like wind, air, or the solar, and then we can help the local using the microgrid control logic to maintain the delivery of the power service. It's stable. If the system need our help, the microgrid can send back to support even the black startup of the whole crash down systems. So the challenges there is, do we have the good or effective way to predict all this generation is fit for our demands? So we have to using some more advanced tools or instrument to do AI to forecasting the load, because we all know the bad side or the worst side of the renewable is the fluctuation. Okay, we saw in the one case in our service area is that there's a 4 megawatt solar farms there, and close by is another waste to energy plant in the system, and they have a ton of the load there, people living there, 10,000 some people living there, but suddenly in the daytime the cloud cover just a few minutes, then the voltage dropped down. Okay, the injection from the solar farm is close to almost zero. Then the tripped whole system, and even the waste to energy power station also be tripped. Then the blackout coming. So we know that it's kind of challenges for that. So if we can using the the IoT platform with the AI, algorithm to forecasting to provide a precise forecasting of the output, then we can to do some control logic inside the microgrid and maintain the stability of the service there. So I think there's a very, very good situation for the IoT application or AI application in this region. But compared with the investment, okay, because we already ignoring the investment from the conventional generation, they don't need to increase in their capacity. They don't build an additional transmission line to this end user. So it's already saving the cost, capital cost there at this time. We just invest in the end user side. So that directly can balance the capex of this investment.
This is like, I mean, smart grids are a huge topic in Southeast Asia for quite a time now, right? And there have been quite a few companies coming up with solutions, with services that would integrate such smart grids. Yet it's not really. There are applications, but you mentioned half of Indonesia is still without energy, and what I'm interested in that context, I mean, one part, of course, is you talked about this discrepancy between the rural areas and the big cities in that area, and I think that is, from the sounds of it, and that's the experience that you see also in other countries, it seems to be somewhat in relation to that privatization of the energy sector, right? Obviously, it's more profitable for me as a big energy company to invest in Jakarta or Bangkok or places like that than invest in a remote island of the 30,000+ that Indonesia has. And you have a rural population there, which is not that wealthy. And so it's a high cost. It's a high capex to actually get to that island, and you need to go overseas and all these things. You probably won't build a plant for the 500, let's say, people on the island. But how do you think, from a technological perspective and also from a business perspective, from a business case perspective, I see that a lot of these initiatives don't succeed or are held back, don't grow as much as you would hope. And on the other hand, how can you make it as a startup? It's an opportunity, obviously. There's something there where a big company and the traditional providers basically left aside, and you can enter that market. You can bring an offering to the table, but how can you make that? There's also the reason why they left that market, because it's not that profitable to them. How can you potentially build a business case around it? So what are the technical challenges to actually make that happen? You already talked about that, and potential help and solutions. But on the business case side, do you see why, or do you see any good approach in making that work? Is there some subsidy from the government side in these countries available if I want to enter the market? This is, I think, key here, because, as I said, I talked to a lot of microgrid related companies, startups, and more established companies in the area, but a lot of that hasn't ever really led to anything.
Right.
So, what is your perspective?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's really that we are facing. So when the startup of this new kind of business model, they're likely to be the off-grid situation. You know, the conventional power utility that they are capable to providing the service there because of the local people wealthy, because there are very little demands at this moment, and the low income of the local people. and if they invest in a lot of infrastructure there, they have no return. Okay, definitely no return. So that's the reason that the renewable can play an important role there, because they already neglected the investment of the traditional transmission line and the distribution line. So directly install the generation close to the end user is definitely a feasible way. But actually now I can say the solar already cost of solar is already lower, but we have to maintain the stable so that we coming out the energy storage, right? But energy storage now is still very high, and yeah. So all this technology is like money accumulated. So that means they need a lot of capex, and definitely the local government need to I mean the government of the country like Indonesia, they do have the financial support every year for electrification of this region. And yeah, from the economic wisely, I think so far it's difficult to say it's profitable or not profitable, because we can not using the so high standard solution, but using some specific technologies that to low cost, but can provide the basic or the fundamental need of the power or energy in this region, in this small island. Okay, that's definitely because the island is still using the diesel as a backup system or other major system. The cost of the diesel is still high. So if we compare with all the operational cost, okay, we still find that the feasible things that we can use in the government financial for the capex, part of the capex, okay, but because of renewable, the operational cost is very low, and if we're using some good, maintenance-free technologies, that means either we're using the good product, or we're using some good operational practice. For instance, if we can using the IoT technology to do the predictive maintenance, not the regular maintenance of these facilities around these thousands of islands, it can saving the cost of our daily operation. Then you can gonna see, and maybe it's financial viable of this kind of solution. But if we're using the traditional way, that means that, for instance, in the energy sectors, we're using the regular maintenance. Okay, every 5 years, every 3 years, we have to replace something like that. Using with the IT, smart grid, sometimes we already starting like the conditional based maintenance. Okay, but not for all the product. Now with the AI, with the IoT technology, maybe we can use in the predictive maintenance practice. So if we can balance all these technologies, advantages or disadvantages, we may find a practical way in this region. If we only use one kind of, for instance, if we're using the older version energy providing, it definitely we cannot meet the balance of this one. So we're still facing the challenge of this kind of area. We have to think of some revolutionary solution there.
What I was starting to say, sorry for interrupting you a little bit earlier. What I gleaned from this, so one of the big challenges that I've seen also in these conversations is to get the unit cost per such a grid to a level that's acceptable, and then maintenance O&M obviously plays a role there. if you talk about AI and IoT technologies, you have the benefit of being able to centralize a lot of things. Even though you have a lot of smart grids, what's usually available in these countries is some kind of data connection, even in more rural areas. Or you can do that through other means, through on-premise means, and you can distribute some of the calculations for that out really as part of the microgrid. But you can centralize a lot of the logic behind it. So you could, if you build at scale in that case, you could actually make it work, because the unit price might, you would have to look at it. Obviously, we are not there yet to have that calculation made. There are some trials here and there, but most of these do not operate on a profit as well for the unit.
Scalability actually is a major issue
for that. You have to bring that down. You need to still, even though it's a microgrid and it's decentralized, you need to centralize as much as possible to have that scale effect. I think I would say from what I've learned from conversations. So in that sense, I agree that there might be an entry point for these kind of technologies to bring benefit. In that sense, you mentioned a country like Malaysia offering some financial schemes. I know Thailand does to a degree, but obviously, if we talk ASEAN, there's a huge difference between individual member states. There's a country like Vietnam, then compared to a country like Singapore, where you talk about vast differences in GDP per capita, in vast differences of political structures, of economical structures. So from your perspective, now looking at the ASEAN part, China, we can do a little bit of a conversation right after. We have a few minutes left, but not too much. From that area, from your experience, where do you think it would make, if I have this amazing new technology which makes microgrids profitable at scale, and I want to enter the market, which one do you think would make the most sense for me to take a first step?
I think.
I know it's a difficult question.
My preference in this region, I think the market here is the best market is Thailand and Indonesia, because they really have this demands of the microgrid, and I think they really do have this microgrid scattering around the country. For the other, and also these two, I think the Ministry of the Mining and the Energy Ministry of the both country, and also the utility there, I think they're a little bit more open than the rest. Okay, I'm just not say the Singapore is one of the best performance utilities in the world. Okay,
it's hard. So
they're very good there. But I think that they are really welcome the new technology in Singapore, of course. But Singapore is much stronger, and it's very congestion areas for that one. So
it's very compact.
Right? So if the microgrid, I think is better in the Thailand. They have enough many locations now is trying to do the microgrid. Okay, and also the Indonesia, they have many islands, thousands islands. The total they have 7,000 islands, I think. So it has 1,000 islands available for such kind of solution. So the scalability of this application will be enough to support the the balance of the investment and outcome. So I think these two countries are most I think so promising countries or market for this kind of solutions. Okay, for Vietnam, I don't think Vietnam they have very industrialized process now, and they build a huge large power station. So they're going to start in the centralized investment. Okay, the focus may not to be the microgrid. But if they allow the private sector to providing the microgrid, I think it's going to be interesting in the next stage. Mm-hmm.
Great. So we hit the hour mark. Maybe we can slowly wrap it up with this. We will also still answer your questions. Don't worry, we get to that point. The last thing I would like to talk about, obviously to that point in regards to microgrids, as Kelvin mentioned, we are in discussions about the topic. We are looking into projects there. If you do have a product that might help there, feel free to get in touch with us. We are happy to talk about potential applications or how we could maybe work together. So always open to that. Please don't hold back. Contact us immediately. And then the last step, as we talked about China in the beginning, we have been focusing a little bit on the Southeast Asian market now. But if the same question basically, so you have a very well-developed infrastructure, especially over the last years. You have still a rise in demand, and obviously there's also parts of China which are not yet to the level of Shanghai. So there's definitely room to still develop, and there's still money. The government still puts a lot of money into infrastructure. So is there something where you think, if I would be interested in that market, do you think there's a focus on some technology that would make the most sense to if I have this, then it would make sense to go to China? What is the demand there? What do you think would make the most sense? Besides the challenges, obviously, that you talk with much bigger entities than in these other markets we just mentioned.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, in China, actually, I mentioned in my slide that China is utilities play a very leading role for the demonstration of the new technology. So actually, they really welcome new technologies. And nowadays, I think the energy IoT, EIoT is the hot topics there. And but there's still a lot of technology need to be implemented related to the IoT. If there is something, smart components, components of the like the sensors or something like that, and the digital twin definitely is the way that the local utility is looking at now. And I know there's few trials already. They are starting this, to find the advantage of the digital twin in China, but we are not seeing the result yet. So I think if we have a very mature technologies about the digital twin and easy compare with other competitors, I think it's going to be a good opportunity, a good chance to be introduced to China. That one is very, very, I think, hot topics nowadays in China. And also the AI, if we could have some good algorithm that to help the operation and the maintenance improvement, I think that one is also another kind of field that will be welcomed here.
Great. Thank you very much. Do you have anything else that you would like to talk about before we answer questions? Is there anything you would like to add at this point?
Not yet.
Perfect. Then Nicholas, do we have questions?
Yes. So Lucas is asking, what do you think is the main challenge for smart energy in China?
Main challenge of smart energy in China. Still, I think the smart energy, the target, the real essential target for the smart energy is to improve the efficiency and to finally to reduce the unit cost of energy. Okay, if they increase the cost, if they're using the smarter solution, but to get the price high, not affordable by the customers, or they're using a smart solution, but high technology, but to increase in energy consumption per capita. That will be definitely the wrong thing. So the challenge is that in China, actually, what my point is that first, the electrical market, okay, market to make mechanism for the electrical sector is very important so far. If there's no such kind of sound mechanical of the market mechanism, the cost, the signal sent to our society, our economic, is the wrong signal. So all the decisions making in the customer side will be different. So I think the challenge is that to return the market to be to traditional monopoly market to be the marketized environment. I think that will be good for the economy finally. But now I think we are going through that at this moment.
Exciting times, definitely. Along that line, what do you think is the biggest challenge if you really want to enter the market? Even if you have a great product and people are excited about it, I from personal experience know that like in state-owned entities around the world, usually you have a big corporate, you have a big apparatus, and to actually find an entry point there usually is not easy. So can you maybe say a word or two about that challenge, and from your experience, what the best way is to go about that?
Cross-border business, I think the major challenge is the cross-country challenge. Sometimes even you have a good product, and you don't know how the local people thinking. You don't know the thinking point of the business doing there, and so you cannot speak the same language with them. Then they will not choose your service or product. So if you are ready for providing the product there, you may have sort of other capability to be ready as well. Even the cross-cultural barriers you have to overcome.
Yes. It's something you should never discount in anything. That is very true. So again, feel free to contact Calvin. Maybe he can help a little bit, being there, and he knows the culture obviously, and he knows how to work with these energy companies. Maybe if there's something really interesting for him too, what I can tell from personal experience, you need some local partner in China if you want to do business there, and that is mainly down to the differences in how you do business and how you communicate, and you might be able to make it in a different way, but I think that's very challenging. And international partnership is always a positive in my book anyway. So we do have one last question before after that we unfortunately run out of time. So Nicholas.
Okay, so Adonai is asking, you said that in China they test more the new technologies than in Asian countries. Do you think that is because in China the change is more coming from the top to bottom than in the Asian countries?
That's a good question. Yeah. Calvin.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the major reasons for why China is growing very fast. They have a very strong top decision-making process, and actually the company there is state-owned companies followers of the strategic So they know what is the target of their business. So if say this is like the country strategy, of course, a lot of big companies say, okay, this will be a future market. Okay, this will be a definitely profitable in the future. So we have to start first quickly to to occupy the position, leading position. So they are trying to do a lot of demonstration to testing the new technologies there. Of course, the return of the economic is not the point of their demonstration first. And the future, as long as they prove that technology is workable, and then the focus will on the how to make the cost right in the right position, like the renewable, like the solar panel in China. Thanks to the Chinese manufacturer, the solar panel, the price is decreased a lot in the past 10 years. Okay, so then the solar is affordable in most of the country. Solar in the price, solar energy is already affordable. So that's because of this is the market that the country already from top to bottom give them a very clear picture of clear incentives or clear future. So then the customer, maybe the companies there that are working towards that. Yeah, that's definitely the one big factors of this kind of difference.
Yeah, I think you can really feel that if you've been doing business or have been traveling in these countries for business, you interacted there. That is a significant difference that is there. On the other hand, as we said earlier, a less top-down approach can also open up some niches that wouldn't be there in China necessarily. So you need to really look into what your niche is, where you can bring some benefit. And if we talk about microgrids, for example, as earlier, Southeast Asia is certainly a good place to go because there's a definite need. There's an immediate need. China, on the other hand, has a very good, well-developed infrastructure, and even though they look into these technologies, it's not as much of an immediate need in many places. And for that reason, you might be able to get a POC or pilot, but it doesn't necessarily relate directly into business. In other areas, as Kelvin, as you mentioned, where you can really help the existing infrastructure, where you can bring some benefit there with especially digital technologies, something that is currently really a big topic in China, not only in energy, but in energy as well. That might be the better market for you to enter. It really depends on what you're doing. So this is it's interesting, but certainly that approach has been a big success factor for the Chinese growth in the last year.
Well, sorry, John. One last suggestion I can bring to the listeners here is that if you have good technology, right, and if you want to implement it to the other countries, okay, to make it financial viable, better to use Chinese product and high quality but cheaper to make this affordable by the local people. If using some other kind of hardware, I think it's a very high capex, not affordable sometimes to some extent. Yes. For instance, like we have a story in Indonesia that is there's a very good company that developed very, very good there is to providing the LED lamp for the local people. Okay, and it's very cheap product, but they meet the demands of the local people. Mm-hmm. If they give them the the good products like Philips thing, okay, the local people cannot afford this kind of thing. Yeah. But the final end user, their real demand is the electricity, no matter it's coming from where.
Yeah, I don't think the end user really cares in that aspect. So. Yeah. And as we mentioned earlier, CapEx is the main key. Like if you want to come out with something like these microgrid solutions, it has to be on scale because the margin will, the total return of investment per microgrid will not be huge. We need to always remind ourselves that this is not necessarily, you will not sell a microgrid to New York or Shanghai or a place like that, but it will be rather a rural area with few people that are not necessarily acquired a lot of wealth over there. So there might be singular use cases like that, but you're right. Look at the CapEx and see that you can build it at scale. And then it might be a very interesting market. Thank you very much, Kelvin. It was really, really insightful. And I'm looking forward to our next episode in 2 weeks. As it looks, we haven't decided finally which one will be the next, but it looks like we're looking to South American markets, namely Brazil. And we talk about new technologies there and how they are used, especially in the context, obviously, of digital twins. That's in the name, so we will obviously always have that focus to a degree. But as always, also talk about market situation and how to enter the market and all these interesting topics that are interesting to entrepreneurs here. As I said, I know there are quite a few of those listening. If you have any further questions to Kelvin, to us, please do contact us on the email you will find in the thank you mail that you will receive after this, or go to our website, netloom.net. There you will find our contact as well. And if you have any questions to Kelvin, we are happy to forward it to him. He's a busy person, but if it's interesting, I'm sure he will, or we will together maybe find a way to get back to you. If you have any other things you would like to talk about, please do also go to netloom.net. You will be able to book a meeting with me and we can discuss that if that's of interest to you. You can subscribe to our newsletter, or obviously, please do subscribe to the next webinar session, Digital Twins Around the World, episode 3 in 2 weeks. Kelvin, thank you again. And everyone else, have an amazing day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.